Welcome back, everyone. Today I'll be discussing the 1997 thriller The Killing Secret, starring Ari Meyers as Nicole, Tess Harper as Tina DiCaprio, Mark Kassen as Greg, and Soleil Frye as Emily DiCaprio. Many of you should know Soleil as Punky Brewster. Not sure how many of you are familiar with Ari Meyers. She has been in quite a few 90s TV movies, though. One example is In My Daughter's Name, about a mother who seeks justice after her teen daughter is murdered while getting napkins for her father's party. Ari Meyers plays the daughter. I always thought Meyers looked a little like Topanga from Boy Meets World. Her facial features also bear a vague resemblance to actress Nicole Tom's, so if you're looking for a movie that you thought starred Danielle Fishel or Nicole Tom, but you can't find it on their IMDb credits, maybe check out Ari Meyers. And here's another fun fact for you. Cindy Pickett is also in The Killing Secret. She plays Nicole's mother. You might remember Pickett also played the mother in I Know My First Name is Steven. Before I get into today's movie, I am just going to give you a little bit of background info on me for those who are new. I am an admin on the fan pages Lifetime Movie Club and Lifetime Movie Channel on Facebook. These are not official pages. They are fan pages where you can discuss your favorite movies with others who enjoy Lifetime productions as well as classic TV movies as much as you do. I have recently released a book called Deadly Guide, The Search for the Killer Made-for-TV Thriller, which is a great resource for you if you especially enjoy those TV movies from the early 90s. If you like this episode and want to continue hearing more from me, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I release one episode a week and sometimes additional content for you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in my comment section. Thank you for stopping by. So let's begin. So back to The Killing Secret. Of all of the TV movies I watched in the 90s and early 2000s, this is up there as one of the most memorable. I enjoy watching it from time to time, even though I know the plotline by heart. Luckily, you can watch it for free on Tubi, the Roku channel, and Pluto TV. I recommend giving it a try if you haven't already seen it. Or even if you have seen it already, go stream it again. What are you waiting for? My permission? You're probably looking it up now as we speak. It's definitely a fan favorite. So we'll start at the beginning. I'll take you scene by scene through the initial plot building points, and then just give a general overview of the second half. And I want to say up front that I do take what I would call a sort of darkly humorous tone at times, and I mean no disrespect to the real-life victims of violent crime. In the end, I am talking about the movie only. And what's the point of reviewing a made-for-TV movie if you can't poke fun at the characters and situations they get themselves into? It sounds like this movie was inspired by a true story, perhaps by many true stories. But even so, I'm sure the movie took ample liberties with the facts and created a fictional narrative around them. This is my disclaimer. This review could be triggering if you're the victim of violent crime, so just keep that in mind. If you do decide to stick around, thank you for joining me for today's episode. Now let's begin. The movie opens with the two main characters, Nicole and Greg, getting it on and making Marvin Gaye proud in a small fishing boat that will serve a sinister purpose later on in the movie. Nicole wonders aloud, what if someone spots us from a plane? Unlikely. Or from a submarine. Yeah, like any submarines can be found lurking at the local teen hangout. But she's smiling as she says all of this and is clearly not serious. Greg doesn't take her concerns seriously either, and they give a couple of nearby senior citizens with binoculars something to gawk at. After some splashing around and kissing in the water, the scene switches to a football game where Greg plays one of the positions. Don't ask me which one, I couldn't care less. And Nicole stands on the sidelines with her fellow cheerleaders, chanting their support. These two have it made. Who didn't want to be one of the cool, pretty kids in high school? Well, I didn't care about that, but I watched lots of movies and read lots of books about people who did. Nicole and Greg are living that dream. The possibilities for them are endless. But this scene is also the one where we find out there's trouble in paradise. Greg and his friend talk about a little side action Greg's been getting with a girl who goes to a different school and whom he refers to as a charity case because she's not as well off as what he's used to. Charming. Let's not mince words here. She's poor. And in the next scene, we see what it means to be a poor girl in this movie. It means buying cute little flower buttons at a flea market and buying the shirt to sew them on at a thrift shop. This was in 1997, may I remind you, before Macklemore made thrift store shopping cool. But the side girlfriend, Emily, seems happy enough with her lot in life. She is a talent, sewing her own clothes with materials she can afford, and she has a sweet relationship with her single mother. Now her brother, on the other hand, is your typical adolescent boy. He's probably about 12 or 13. Their mother is so exasperated by this teen boy's decision to spend an evening with a friend that she almost gives up, talking about how she probably should just ship him off to live with his father already and be done with it. I thought that was a bit of an overreaction. A 13-year-old boy going off to be with his friend is hardly a 5-alarm emergency. Sounds like the mother is feeling overwhelmed due to her own insecurities and trying to pin it on her son. Not every kid can be as loving and perfect as her resourceful older child is, apparently. By the way, I forgot to mention that Emily's last name is DiCaprio. This movie came out the same year as Titanic and not long after the 90s version of Romeo and Juliet. The last name isn't spelled the same, but I think there's a good chance that this was a nod to America's golden boy at the time. Now, I've also thought that the name DiCaprio sounds a bit gruesome, so interesting choice there. Greg shows up at the house around this time to pick up Emily. Emily and Greg go to an abandoned warehouse to hook up. By the way, has there ever been a warehouse in a movie that wasn't abandoned? This warehouse conveniently has a comfy bed just perfect for some alone time. I have to say, for an abandoned warehouse, it comes well equipped. Emily has an announcement for Greg. She's pregnant. Surprise! She did seem a little concerned about something as she was leaving her house in the earlier scene. Clearly, she was summoning up the courage to confess her big news. Greg isn't happy about it. Of course he's not. Emily has hopes he'll come around. Maybe she actually believes this guy will man up and marry her. I can't imagine where she got the idea that this was anything more than a casual fling, because it's just so glaringly obvious to the viewer, even without the background knowledge of his double life with Nicole. There's a scene where Nicole is at a little local cafe with friends. She accidentally bumps into the waitress Tina, who is Emily's mother, by the way, causing Tina to spill drinks all over herself. Nicole and her friends burst into laughter, while Tina just rolls her eyes and probably thinks to herself, teenagers. By the way, interesting side note, actress Ari Meyers plays an 18-year-old in this, but in real life she was in her mid-20s when this movie came out. But she still has a youthful face. The girls hop into their car and speed away, shouting out jubilantly that they only have 6 more weeks. Till graduation, I presume. I got a little bit of an 80s vibe as they drove away, blaring music on the radio. Some of the music in the movie had an 80s feel to it. Later on, during a lake scene, the song You Don't Know by Scarlet and Black plays, and that is a song from 1988. This movie, though, came out in 1997. I'm reading on Wikipedia that there has been speculation that it was inspired by either the murder of 15-year-old Emily Garcia in 1993, which wasn't solved until more recently, by the way, or the murder of 15-year-old Becky Stowe, also in 1993. The murder of Becky sounds much more like the plotline of this movie, with a 2-timing boyfriend killing Becky after finding out she was pregnant. I wanted to see if it was based on an 80s case, but it doesn't look like this movie was. And by the way, if you want to know more about the Becky Stowe case, there's a true crime YouTuber named Braderstein who covers it on her channel, so that's something that you may want to check out, just an FYI. Anyway, Emily DiCaprio makes it home alive that night. She dies a little later on in the movie, just not yet. If she had any sense of self-preservation, she would have been running for the hills about now, trying to put as much distance between her and her crazy 2-timing lover as she possibly could. Not to victim blame, because of course there's no way she could know the depraved depths this loser would eventually sink to. But she has to have figured out by now he's bad news. At the very least, she has to understand this will not end well. The signs are all there. Her judgment is probably just clouded by his good looks, and maybe her desperation for someone to love her and put a little bit of a sparkle into her simple existence. This This is the point where she goes from a love-struck girl with understandable hopes and dreams for herself and her growing baby to a borderline stalker. She starts blowing up Greg's phone. She calls him on his landline, maybe trying to catch him red-handed since he's likely not answering his cell phone. He's a rich kid, so of course he has a cell phone in the mid-90s. He's dancing with his girlfriend, Nicole, at his 18th birthday party. His friend hands him the phone, and when Nicole asks him afterwards who was on the other end of the line, he says he was talking to some girl who wanted to marry him. It's chilling how easy it is for him to say that to her, knowing she'll laugh it off when she really should be paying more attention. I will say, though, Nicole is no fool. She has been accepted to both Duke and Chapel Hill by this point. We learned that in the previous scene. And she wants to seriously consider these options and not just let some teen boy dictate her future. Greg is planning to go to Chapel Hill, and Nicole's mom thinks she'd be crazy not to follow him there. I have to say, Nicole's mom sounds like a real piece of work. This is horrible advice. What kind of TV movie mother is she? Most of the adults in this movie come off as totally worthless, to be honest. Maybe not so much Emily's mother. Emily's mother, by the way, is played by Tess Harper, and I do really like her. She's a sweet lady in this. But even though Nicole seems to be a sensible girl who understands that teen romances don't always last, she's not a mind reader. This isn't called The Killing Secret, revealed through extrasensory perception, so she misses subtle clues that the viewer picks up on because they know what the score is. Hurt by Greg's indifference, Emily decides to drive on over to his house. Back in the 90s, she must have found the address in a phone book or something, because I doubt he gave it to her freely. She watches the outdoor festivities from a safe distance, but Greg gazes across the street and recognizes her car. When he has a free moment, he goes over to her car to climb in the passenger seat and have a little chat with her. By this point, Emily realizes that it's his birthday and she wasn't invited to the party. How many more hints does this guy need to throw at her before she figures it out? And yet she goes so far as to apologize for interrupting his big night. I'm being hard on Emily, and I feel bad about that because it sounds like this was based on a real murder case. And also, it's never the victim's fault. I guess my main issue is that she doesn't seem quite real to me. She seems like a caricature of a person. The predictable trope of the girl who's so madly in love with the boy that she resorts to stalking him. Who uses a pregnancy to try to get him to commit. I wouldn't be surprised if Emily got pregnant on purpose the way she's portrayed here. Only the movie flips the script by having the guy be the sociopathic killer. I doubt anyone is as one-dimensional in real life as Emily is in this. Even if they do things that defy logic, there's an underlying humanity there that I don't think the script quite gave the character. I really felt like she was a plot device in this. She got in the way of the lead boy's happiness. She was a problem that needed to be solved. In the end, I do feel bad that Emily's life ended the way it did, and over something so stupid and ultimately solvable. I feel awful that this is something that happened to a teen girl in real life, to many girls and women over the years, in fact. As the adult, I look at this situation, and I don't see a life and death scenario. Greg would have almost definitely lost Nicole, but he was probably going to lose her anyway, and he would have realized that if he had taken a moment to read between the lines. His parents would have been disappointed, but I'm sure they would have gotten over it and rushed to his aid with their wallets wide open to help in the best way they knew how. That's how people like to solve problems, with money. And eventually, he could have worked out some arrangement with Emily that was favorable for all parties. Once again, he has the money to get through this. Emily is the one who should be panicking and feeling desperate here. Yet even she has options. And I have to say, I really respected the fact that she was being positive about the situation, even though she was being a bit delusional too. She was trying to make the best of it. I just think they needed to come together to figure out a solution that would work in the real world. And she was absolutely right that his parents should know about it. And Greg certainly didn't help matters by going and killing her, that's for sure. Getting to that murder now. He calls up Emily one day soon after his party and asks her to meet him on a street corner so that they can have a talk. They go back to the warehouse. She gives him an ultimatum. Either he does the right thing by her, or she will tell his parents. He reacts the way a sociopathic killer would react when backed into a corner and takes care of the problem, if you know what I mean. which was never really much of a problem in the first place, at least not one that couldn't be dealt with in a rational way, and at least not from my grown-up perspective. But he's 18, and a dumb kid, and now a young girl is dead, and he's got a body to hide. That's what happens when you let your budding serial killer tendencies get the best of you. Skipping ahead, Nicole sees Tina on the news, recognizes her from the cafe, and learns that her daughter is missing. In direct contrast to her killer boyfriend, she has a tender heart and is saddened to hear this. She considers her options later on while watching more of the news and thoughtfully munching on some popcorn. She decides the right thing to do would be to give this frightened, devastated mother a token of her sympathy. She brings a card to the cafe where the mother works, and the woman on duty that night informs her that Tina has taken some time off, which is a bit of a no-brainer, really, if you ask me. But instead of agreeing to take the card from Nicole to give to the woman when she next sees her, she suggests that Nicole bring it to Tina herself. She proceeds to give her the most useless set of directions ever that basically amounts to, keep driving until you come to the house with all the cars. Maybe it's a one-street town, maybe I'm just hopeless at understanding basic directions, but I couldn't help but think it's probably a little bit more complex than she's making it sound. Keep in mind, I'm the person who will get lost in my own hometown and then be calling up my parents in tears, basically saying my goodbyes as I wait for the end to come. Anyway, Nicole finds the house just fine, talks for a bit with Tina. Tina doesn't seem as concerned about her daughter as I would have thought she would be. She seems to take for granted that her daughter is fine and will be located safely soon. That was just the impression I got. But, you know, not everyone reacts to tragedy the same. She did seem, you know, like she might be like an emotional wreck on the inside. She was just trying so hard to hold it together. So I could buy that. Nicole feels like she's bonding with this woman. She immediately has to go and blab to her boyfriend about how she is now practically besties with the mother of the girl he killed. Of course, she doesn't know her boyfriend is the killer. I thought it was kind of weird that she felt the need to overshare with him like this. Not sure why she thought he'd care. Turns out he did, but in a way she didn't expect. They're alone at the same warehouse where Emily died at this point, and she discovers a little flower button on the floor that was torn from Emily's shirt. She has no idea what the significance of this button is, but she thinks it's a cute little keepsake to tuck away in a box in her room. Once again, not sure why these things that would not have any significance to the average person in her situation take on so much meaning for her, but it helps build the tension anyway. I'm going to stop here before I spoil the end for you. Suffice it to say, the police have a suspect in the murder, but it's not initially Greg. It's some weird guy who paints murals of Emily and obsesses over her. Tina suspects Greg, and why wouldn't she? There's some pretty strong evidence pointing to him. And besides, it's always the boyfriend, right? He tries to throw attention off himself by claiming Emily made some offhand remark about running away. Then he says maybe she got picked up by some crazy person. But that's something the killer will often do. They'll be the last person to see the victim alive, and they'll make up some story about how they dropped them off somewhere, or the victim went off with some pick a minority to target here, and you should probably check that guy out because he's the one you want, not me. Or they'll make up nonsense about some remark the missing girl made that nobody else can verify. Nicole's parents think it's weird that she's such good buddies with the enemy. In the minds of her family and her friends, anyone who thinks badly of perfect little Greg is the antagonist in the story. Nicole's mother makes condescending remarks to company, comparing Tina to some stray animal her daughter has taken in, because that's just the kind of bleeding heart her little girl is. Rich people suck. That seems to be the point of this movie. Friends don't have your back. They'll turn on you in the blink of an eye. Well, unless you're Greg, then they'll stand up for you and go to their graves professing your innocence to anyone who cares to listen. And what the heck is a summer dance, by the way? Why are these kids attending a dance at the school after graduating? Once we had our ceremony and went on our little project graduation trip, we were done. Finito. Hasta la vista. There was a weird scene where they've graduated but are back at the school for a dance. Why? So Nicole's fair-weather friend can give her a hard time in a public bathroom about betraying their boy? Perfect setting for some petty BS, that's for sure. The build-up to the end is overall satisfying, and I was happy to see that Nicole's mother came around and began to see that she was wrong and her daughter was right. I mean, she didn't specifically state this. The movie didn't come out and hit you over the head with it. But you could tell it by her sort of quiet acceptance that, she was wrong. And Nicole was right. As for The Killing Secret, I rate the movie 4 stars out of 5. I honestly keep coming back to it because it's very satisfying the way it all comes together in the end. It stars Punky Brewster, and I love the relationship between Nicole and Tina, even if it feels a bit contrived. What can I say? I'm a sucker for quirky things in movies, like befriending the mother of the girl your boyfriend killed. Also, the movie has some awesome music in it, including the Scarlet and Black tune and some creepy song that plays during the murder scene that I don't know the title of and will probably never find out the title of, because that's the burden us TV movie watchers have to bear in this life, hearing really great songs in TV movies that we will never find out the names of because most of the times they probably don't really exist and were written for the movie in question. Erica Flores plays Nicole's friend Sharon in this. I forgot to mention her early on. She's been in a few TV movies as well. One I can think of off the top of my head is Vision of Murder, about a psychic therapist. Flores plays the daughter of a woman who is suspected to have been murdered by her husband, who was played by Terry O'Quinn. In The Killing Secret, Flores looks a little like Marla Sokoloff. You know, Gia from Full House? Or at least I thought so. But just in this movie, not normally. Maybe it's the hair. And she had this skirt she would wear off and on that looked like a Catholic schoolgirl skirt, even though I'm pretty sure she went to a public school, not a private one. Marla Sokoloff wore something similar in the Alicia Silverstone movie True Crime, only in True Crime, Marla Sokoloff's character actually went to private school, so it made sense. This movie reminds me a lot of No One Would Tell, because of the body being dumped in the lake. Remember when I said the boat in the beginning of The Killing Secret had some sinister purpose later on? That was a sinister purpose. It was used to dump a body. And then Greg wanted to continue to use it for some boyfriend-girlfriend action later on, which goes to show how warped this guy truly was. Both The Killing Secret and No One Would Tell are about a girl being killed by a boyfriend. Also, both movies end with a courtroom scene. It's such a waste, truly. A waste of a life and of potential. Crime doesn't pay. It really doesn't. Don't commit murder, people, just because you don't want to have a baby. I feel like there should be some slogan about this, like there is with suicide. It gets better. You're just seeing a fraction of the picture because you're looking at it through a very narrow lens. You don't have to kill your girlfriend and your unborn child. There are people you can talk to. You can work something out. That high school girlfriend you're trying to keep, she's probably going to leave you anyway. And you clearly don't care all that much for her if you're running around looking for some outside action. Use your brain here. You're not going to school just to look pretty and play ball. One other movie that reminds me of The Killing Secret is Betrayed by Love, starring Steven Weber, Mare Winningham, and Patricia Arquette. Patricia Arquette plays a woman who has an affair with a married man, Steven Weber, and ends up pregnant, so he kills her. Mare Winningham plays the victim's sister. Well, that's all I got for you. That's all the murder I wrote for today. I hope you found this review helpful. I hope it helped you decide whether or not this is the next movie for you to watch, or if you've seen it before, if it's the next movie for you to rewatch. Because as all us made-for-TV movie fans are well aware, there's no such thing as a spoiler in made-for-TV movie land. We've probably seen the movie 10 million times, and even if we haven't, the title tells us everything we need to know. It's basically just a recap of the whole entire plot. So, yeah, I try not to spoil things, but I understand, sometimes that's just the made-for-TV movie way. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed my review, and take care. Until next time.